Good evening. You are listening to Let's Talk live on Salaam Radio 106.2 FM, online at www.salamradio.co.uk and live on Facebook, Twitch and YouTube. I'm Akil, joined by Ishvak. We are also due to have a guest in the studio, but we know he's running late. Hopefully he does make it to the studio tonight. So this evening we will be discussing a recent unrest in Pakistan-administered Kashmir. This is not a normal political discussion. This is about protest, elections, representation, communication restrictions, arrests, reported deaths, official security claims, human rights concerns, and the bigger question of whether ordinary Kashmiris are truly being heard. Let me be clear from the start. We will be factual, we'll be balanced and respectful, but we will not excuse violence. We will not turn human suffering into political point scoring. According to reports, some facts on the ground are disputed. Some claims are difficult to verify because communications have reportedly been restricted and media access has been limited. So tonight, where something is alleged, we will say it is alleged. Where authorities have a different account, we will say that too. Neutrality does not mean silence. Neutrality means we ask hard questions of everyone. Call us on 01733 602 133, text us on 07411 191 062, or comment on our live streams. But please keep the contributions respectful, factual and constructive. Now, Kashmir does not need more slogans shouted over its people. It needs truth, accountability and the courage to listen, especially when the voices are uncomfortable. So let's set the scene. We are focusing tonight on Pakistan-administered Kashmir, also known as Azad Jammu and Kashmir. According to recent reports, the unrest has been linked to regional elections, protests by the Jammu Kashmir Joint Awami Action Committee known as JAAC. I'll just call him Jack for the rest of the evening. I think that will just be easier for me. And the banning of that group, the disputed issues of 12 reserved assembly seats, communication restrictions, arrests and official allegations of armed infiltration and serious reports of deaths and injuries. Amnesty International has called for the communications blackout to be lifted and for an independent and transparent investigation into reports of lethal force. And the UN Human Rights Office has also called for calm, inclusive dialogue and prompt, thorough and impartial investigations into all deaths during the unrest. This is already sensitive, Ishvak, but because for many people listening, Kashmir is not far away. It's family, it's history, it's identity, and of course it's pain. But tonight, we must separate the emotion from the allegation from evidence and evidence from political loyalty. So the question I have for you is, when we talk about the unrest, what is the first thing that someone listening to our show this evening needs to understand? Is this mainly about elections, representation, economic frustrations, or years of people feeling unheard?
I think the last one is the key thing. The years of people being unheard is the most important thing here, where people from Kashmir feel that those that have purported to represent them haven't done so in their interest. For so long they've lacked so many things that should have just been given. They use Indian occupied Kashmir as an example. Just to give you a brief, we've spoken about it in the past, but how India has pushed more of its own, a certain demographic into there to change, say, the vote bank in that area. But to do that, they've also improved, say, the infrastructure there to make it easier for people to come in. When you look at it from the Pakistan side, that infrastructure has been lacking for many years. It's not just about infrastructure, it's about the basic necessities. So a lot of the money and a lot of the survival of Kashmir has depended on people from Kashmir leaving that area, going out around the world to work. Hence why we have such a big diaspora in the UK as well, from my grandfather, say, and grandparents' ages. Since then, they've come, they've worked hard, they've sent money back, and that is one of the only reasons that area has survived. The government has always been lacking in support. That is something that people have lived with because they were able to make do. But as social media has prevailed, as information is at the touch of your fingertips nowadays, there's stuff that you can't hide. So what we had this conversation 2 weeks ago, or was it 2-3 weeks ago?
Yeah, that's right,
when this first kicked off.
Yeah.
And what I didn't like at the time was the disrespect that was being shown towards, say, Pakistan or the army, or I said, look, there must be a better way, right, to sit down around a table, talk these issues out, because at the end of the day, both nations are aligned. This is so closely aligned that you can't separate them. It's like chopping your arm off. It can't happen. So they're that close. You've got to sit down and work out the differences and the issues and understand why. And I now, after seeing videos and what's been happening, I have to sort of eat my words a little bit and hold back. I still say, look, be respectful. Don't swear. Don't disrespect each other. I'm still on that. But it almost feels like the Pakistani government have this idea and they're not listening. They've listened to some of the demands that the Kashmiri people or the Action Committee had, which is understandable, but they were easy demands. They were easy to deliver. I said to you at that time, look, if these guys want this action, if they don't want these seats, they should sit down and do it in a democratic way, stand in the elections and, fight to have those seats removed in a democratic way. We've had recent elections in the last week or so, and I can tell you now, just from information that's been coming out, that people were talking before the elections that there was going to be corruption, and it's the same stooges, you could say, that are put up, and they don't actually represent the people. They're there to represent their own needs and their own benefits.
Okay, let's go through what's been reported. And as you mentioned, the election. So, according to Al Jazeera, regional elections in Pakistan-administered Kashmir began on the 27th of July, so you're right, it was this week, and the election has been overshadowed by a dispute over 12 reserved seats for refugees from Indian-administered Kashmir who live elsewhere in Pakistan. Al Jazeera reported that this issue has revived long-running questions about democracy, autonomy and political power, just as you said, Ishvak. And according to Associated Press, authorities in Pakistan-administered Kashmir have accused JAK of attempting to sabotage the regional elections. AP also reported that the officials alleged militias linked to the Pakistani Taliban had infiltrated the protests. Officials said one parliamentary officer had been killed and several security personnel had been wounded. And on the other side, Amnesty International says there have been reports that security forces used lethal force against protesters in Rawalakot on the first day of the regional election. And Amnesty also said that the communication blackout makes independent verification harder. Now, The Guardian reports claims from JAK that at least 30 protesters have been killed over the 2 days. However, The Guardian also stated that it could not independently verify the death toll because of the restricted media access and communication disruption. So this is a serious situation. People have been killed. There's allegations of deadly force on both sides. I'm just listening to what you're saying. Yeah, you've got these elections, accusations there of corruption. Again, you've also got allegations of who's killing who's. I mean, you've got official claims about armed infiltration. Then you've got lots of media and information coming about all these people who've been killed in Rawalakot, and I believe some people have also been killed in Mirpur as well. My texts are flying in at the moment, Ishvak. We'll be reading them as the show goes on. I do feel, because you have this communications blackout and you have information coming in from so many different sources, I think when the facts are contested, transparency becomes the test, doesn't it? And if the truth is on your side, excuse me, independent scrutiny should not be feared. So I guess some of the question there is, why is there an internet blackout?
There shouldn't be. Like we just said, if you're a democratic society and you purport to be democratic, then you should allow for communications, you should allow for the world press to be in there, you should not be hiding anything. At the same time, look, we're here doing a radio show and we said that we were going to be neutral and transparent, and so looking at it from the Pakistani government side, if there is security concerns, because there's talks of security concerns and infiltration and disruption and almost like people trying to cause an Arabian Spring in Pakistan, neighbouring countries are. If that is the case, then maybe they should come out and say that. It wouldn't affect their security by declaring that this is what we found, this is the factual stuff, and that's why we've taken these actions. And then, you know what? The public would understand that and accept it and say, you know what? Row back on this, we agree. That's not happening. There's no information coming out. All that is happening is they're being suppressed. So people and their demands are being suppressed, which is wrong.
It is, absolutely is. No protest movement has the right to use violence. No political party, no army has the right to just simply attack people who live in those areas who've gone out to vote. There's a lot of messages coming in. The theme across the messages that I'm reading at the moment is the Pakistan army has blood on their hands. I'm just reading. I'm just sifting through this. Quite a lot that I cannot say on air at the moment. Blood on their hands. This was a peaceful protest. Similar messages that are coming in at the moment. You are right. I mean, if this was a situation, perhaps they should have postponed those elections.
Personally,
if they'd postponed the elections and then dealt with this situation with everybody at the table, saying, "Look, this is the situation. Let's get over this hurdle." Or do you still think we would have had this still happened?
I was one of those people out saying that the elections should go ahead and the people of the Action Committee should take part in those elections and, democratically stand and win and then make those changes in legislation. What's happened in these elections is obviously there's accusations that the Action Committee have disrupted the elections. There's accusations that the army or Rangers have disrupted elections. There's big accusations of corruption in the elections. And if there's a village with 1,000 votes registered and only 100 people have gone to vote, but yet there's 900 votes that have been registered in that village somehow, it makes you question.
It does, yeah.
When a lot of people have boycotted these elections because of what's going on. Where did the votes come from? You have to ask those questions.
You do.
And there's video circulating. So on that sense, I do have to eat my words. And I have to be honest and say, look, I was the person saying, yeah, do it, join the elections and do it the proper way. This has proven that you couldn't do it that way. So it's proven those words that those people were afraid of, that, you can't trust the election process in that area. And you can't trust those people that have been elected either, unfortunately. And one of the other things is self-inflicted, I would say, in some cases, because those same people, they come here and people spoil them and put garlands around them and, go and collect them from the airport and, give them all the protocol you can think of. And yet, what have they actually achieved for that area? I can't see anything compared to neighbouring countries that those people have achieved, apart from lining their own pockets.
Jamil has messaged us from Mangladam, and he says, if armed groups have infiltrated protests, as authorities have alleged, that must be investigated properly. If security personnel have been killed or injured, their lives matter too. But a state also carries a higher responsibility. Thanks for the message there, Jamil. Appreciate you listening. But he's right. I mean, look, a state has weapons, it has detention powers, it controls communication networks, as we know, it controls access, it controls investigations. And because of that, a state must also act lawfully, proportionally, and transparently.
It's almost like they are trying to ignore the situation, put a blind eye to it, as if it's not, just because they're not talking about it, it's not happening. And they need to. The politicians in Pakistan need to come out and give their honest stance, right? And if there's a security issue, the army need to come out and say, these are our security concerns, and this is the reason why we've taken certain actions, and then back it with proof. They're supposed to be one of the most advanced, most capable armies in the world, I would say, or amongst, and so is their intelligence service. Now, if that is the case, they've got to have some evidence that they can put on the table, and if they can't ignore the public of Kashmir, and they need to listen to what their demands are. But on that note, I will say to you, look, my family, when we talk about people leaving India and being Major, travelling to Pakistan, having these votes there. So my family moved from Kashmir to Pakistan in the time when my grandfather came over to this country, my great-grandparents moved into Pakistan. So I would be classed among those, what you say, major community. So I'd be shooting myself in the foot by saying, oh no, we shouldn't have a vote or say in Kashmir because, our heritage is there. My family, I still have relatives there. As I said, we're connected. It's like left arm, right arm. So in one way, I want them to have some sort of say, but at the same time, it's more important for me that the people that actually live in Kashmir have a say for their own future and destiny, rather than me sitting in this country or even my relatives sitting in Pakistan.
No, I understand. Shaida has text the show. She says the protest movement must be responsible, but a state must be accountable. Yeah, I totally agree with you there. Do you feel we're now going to be in a situation, Ishvak, where Pakistan is going to try and maintain the law and suppress all types of dissent going forward until, like you said, the only way potentially that they want to, stop this from growing any further is to have suppression?
What Pakistan need to realise, the Pakistan government needs to realise, and you need to take examples from other places around the world, Kashmiris, Palestinians, people from Jammu, Muslims generally, they're a resilient people. If you look at how long the issues have been going on in occupied Kashmir on the Indian side, it's gone on for years. And if Pakistan want Azad Jammu and Kashmir to turn into that kind of a state, then they're going the right way about it. If they want it to turn into a Gaza, they're going into the right way about it. What they need to do is row back, sit down, and actually realise and work with these people to resolve this. There's no other way. If they think they're going to do it by force, yeah, they've got the force, they've got the power, they've got a very powerful army, they've got the weapons. But what they don't realise, they don't want that trouble, and it will continue. If they don't back down, I don't think the Action Committee will either. And if they do, they're going to end up with guerrilla warfare. They don't need that.
And this level of bloodshed that's going to then unfold. I mean, look, we've already seen videos of people being shot, and a lot of people have passed away, been killed as well. So what you're saying essentially here is if both sides don't, and certainly Pakistan's army needs to stop exactly where it is now and come to the table, is what you're saying, and have a conversation. Well, if not, we're going to see a bloodbath.
Let me put it this way to you. There's people from Kashmir who are in the Pakistani army, okay? There's people from Kashmir who are against what's happening. Can you imagine two brothers being on opposing sides? Does it need to come to that? Because literally that's what it is at the moment.
But then obviously we've seen anti-terror laws being used against the protest movement. And surely that risks criminalising political dissent, doesn't it?
It does, but they're then using some of the rules or legislation that's even been passed in this country, recently in the last year or so.
Yeah, that's right.
So they're using examples.
Since the Palestine Action, Palestine Action, and all the marches.
Yeah.
They've applied. Okay.
So they're using that as an example. If the UK can get away with it, why can't Pakistan?
Yeah, I mean, look, I agree with you. Look, tonight we're not saying every protester is peaceful, and we're not saying every officer is guilty. We are saying every allegation must be investigated, and every death must matter, and every side must be held to a standard. The moment every protester is treated like a terrorist, politics has failed, Ishi.
Yeah. No, it's as simple as that.
But the movement, the violence, where we got, once violence enters the protests or either side, it's difficult at that moment. It's so heated for people to claw back. But the issue you have now is because so many people have been killed, there's a lot of people standing and saying, look, whatever it takes.
I've spoken to people about this, and one of my friends said something very interesting and true. He said to me, they're 60 years too late, the Kashmiris. They should have actioned this 60 years ago, 50 years ago, but they've left it to the politicians. We were too busy, out of the country, making money, whatever, and they've left it to these politicians, given them a stage, a platform to improve themselves in whatever way, financially, and make a name for themselves. But they've, as I've said before, they've achieved nothing for the region. When you look at that bridge that's recently, hopefully opening soon, over the dam, it's taken, what is it, 20 years?
Yeah.
For a bridge.
Yeah,
right? And then we're talking about airports. Yes, there should have been an airport there years ago, but who's going to deliver that? Will the Pakistan government want to deliver an airport in Kashmir now? Kashmiris could have actually probably paid for it themselves with the amount of money they've invested into the region and the amount of money they send in, but it gets swallowed up.
Okay, let's look at one of the key political issues then, the 12 reserve seats. And according to Al Jazeera, the Azad Jammu and Kashmir Legislative Assembly has 45 seats, with 12 reserved for refugees from Indian-administered Kashmir who live elsewhere in Pakistan. So Al Jazeera reported that the dispute over those seats has become central to the election debate and wider unrest. Supporters of the reserve seats argue that displaced Kashmiris remain part of the wider Kashmiri political story, and that the representation reflects the unresolved nature of the Kashmir dispute. Now, critics argue that people who do not live in Pakistan-administered Kashmir should not have political influence over the daily lives of those who do. This is complicated. There are arguments on both sides, but public anger shows that many people do not see this as a technical constitutional issue. They see it as a question of power. Now, you and I know, Ishi, that representation is not just about who has a seat. It is about whether the people living under a system believe the system answers to them. So my question to you, Ishvak, is, do these reserve seats protect the wider Kashmiri cause, or do they weaken the local democratic confidence?
Okay, so again, looking at it in the past, when we were talking about this, a couple of weeks ago, I had concerns that why does Pakistan want to hold on to these seats? Is it because they don't want to change the demographic? Is it because when it comes to the United Nations vote on Kashmir, do they want these people to have a voice there? I think that's a bit clouded. Okay, the reality is, and it's becoming more and more evident, that when you have regions in Kashmir where you need 40,000 votes to win a seat, and then you have another area where you only need 900 votes to win an equivalent seat, but that seat is influenced by Pakistan and the people live in Pakistan. So those 12 seats are then able to manipulate how the government is formed, say, in Kashmir. So it would be like us having 5 seats or 10 seats in the Welsh Assembly from the UK or from England, or in the Scottish Assembly, but then we can manipulate which party takes control of that government, and that's what people are not happy with, because that manipulation shouldn't be happening. And I think it's not even about the seats in the sense of the people, it's more about the manipulation and how those 12 seats affect the decisions that are made for the Kashmiris via control from Islamabad. That's what people are frustrated with.
Yeah, and what you're essentially saying there as well, Ishvak, is that people are essentially feeling like the decisions are being made over their heads. They have no real control over it.
Well, it's this. Yeah. What's happened now is kind of proof of that. Because if that wasn't the case, why is Pakistan so afraid of allowing the Kashmiris that independence almost? Look, I know Kashmiris who say we're a part of Pakistan.
Yeah.
There's Kashmiris who want to be independent. There's Kashmiris who say they would never want to be apart from Pakistan and depend on Pakistan wholly on security, amongst other things. And it's likewise for Kashmir. There's a lot of for Pakistan. It needs Kashmir for the water and maybe the energy, etc., from hydro energy, etc. So there's a lot that entwines the two areas, and you can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
But you can't have people feel like they're being manipulated, and that is the biggest issue. And I think the Pakistan government need to row back a bit on this and try and resolve this issue in the best way they can, which is listening to this action committee and understanding what's the root of the cause, and the root of the cause is the manipulation because of the 12 seats.
Okay, it would be too simple to say that this unrest is only about the reserve seats. According to a report around the AJK and the protests, the movement has also been linked to wider economic and governance concerns, including the cost of electricity, flour and wheat, subsidies, elite privileges, and questions of local control. This matters because unrest rarely comes from nowhere. Usually there is a spark, but underneath the spark are years of frustration. People ask, why are the bills so high? Why is food so expensive? Why do elites enjoy privileges? Why do ordinary people feel ignored? Why does political power feel distant? Why are decisions made above people rather than with people? When people cannot afford basic living and then feel politically unheard, anger does not despair, it builds. I'm going to leave you with that. We're heading towards a short ad break. But I want you to think about this, and if this is something close to your heart or you'd like to share some comments, please do comment on our live stream on Facebook, YouTube and Twitch. You can text the show on 07411 191062. Of course, you can talk to me initially on 01733602133. But as I said, we'll be back after this short break. You're listening to Salaam Radio 106.2 FM live.
Stay tuned to Salaam Radio after this short ad break.
Home or business, protect what matters most with a bespoke security system from H-Secure Tech. CCTV, intruder and fire alarms, and access control too. 5-star Google-rated H-Secure Tech install them all, with 24-hour and mobile app monitoring, keeping your business safe and your loved ones protected. To discuss your specific requirements, call 01733 590 201 or visit hsecuretech.com.
Thinking about opening a takeaway or growing your food business? Speak to Isaac Wholesale in Peterborough. We work with restaurants, takeaways and QSR brands across the UK, supporting them with supply, delivery, branded packaging and growth support. Our dedicated customer growth partners work closely with you, understanding your business and your goals. From first store to multi-site growth, Isaac Wholesale works as an extension of your business, helping you grow with confidence.
AJK Limited provide quality and compassionate care at home support services, respecting the cultural, linguistic and religious backgrounds of those we care for. We find out exactly what our clients need, then match our trained AJK staff to meet their personalised yet affordable care plans, promoting independence and mental health well-being. Call 01733 666 801 to speak with registered manager Iqbal Manji or visit ayadacare.co.uk for details.
What do children at Bright Bambini Montessori Nursery say about us?
I love my teachers and friends.
At Bright Bambini Montessori, we sprinkle confidence, independence and stir the love of learning. From 18 months to 5 years, free funded places available.
Come join in the fun.
Call Bright Bambini Montessori on Peterborough 306565 or visit bbmc.uk.
Craving top quality fried and grilled chicken without the high price tag? At Sam's, we make every bite unforgettable. From juicy chicken to mouth-watering burgers, taste why we're the best in town. Visit us at our brand new restaurant at 33 Westgate in the city centre or our second spot on Lincoln Road. Prefer delivery? We're on Just Eat, Uber Eats and Deliveroo. Sam's, serving up amazing chicken across the UK for over 30 years.
This is Salaam Radio, Peterborough's Muslim community radio, broadcasting on 106.2 FM and online.
Welcome back to Let's Talk on Salaam Radio 106.2 FM. I'm Akil, joined by Ishvak, and tonight we're speaking about the recent unrest in Pakistan-administered Kashmir. If you missed the first half of the show, do go onto YouTube, rewind and catch up. Now, Ishvak, before the break, we were talking about Jack and the protests, the movements, wider economic and governance concerns. And as I mentioned, this isn't just really about the 12 seats. It's about a wider crisis of trust, isn't it? So you have the economic grievances that have been ignored, ordinary people paying the price for a system that protects the elites. And authorities say demands, they're not willing to accept all of Jack's demands. So what's your thoughts on all of this from what you've seen? I mean, what I'd say that governments often see unrest as a security problem, don't they? But sometimes unrest is a political message because, like you said earlier on, things have been going on for so long where decisions have been made over people's heads and the cost of living has increased so much. It's like a melting, boiling pot, isn't it?
We have to look at it from both sides, okay? So initially, I was of a view. I've still got friends that support the idea of what Pakistan's doing. I've got other friends who support the idea of what the Action Committee's doing. I've got other friends who are neutral, stuck in the middle, don't know which way they go because they're loyal to both, okay? And they just don't want to see the unrest. They just want everything to calm down, be resolved. Even for it to go back to how it was a year ago, they'd be prepared to live under that just so that there's no deaths, no killing, no, action in any way. But people they're tired of that. They don't want to carry on. Some people don't, they're tired of grinding the stone and getting the same result. But initially, I was talking to people a month ago, they were saying, look, hold on a minute. The Action Committee had demands. There was quite a few fair demands in there. They wanted subsidies for flour. They wanted subsidies for electricity because they were promised that because when the dam was built, a lot of that electricity is generated from those hydro plants. So why should we not get that subsidy? That was their argument. So from the understanding is the Pakistan government at the time said, look, they agreed to a lot of those terms, but then they felt like when they went back to the table, those demands were increasing. So they've accepted the demands initially, and then they've added these demands about the 12 seats, and the Pakistan government representatives have come on media and saying, well, we've accepted all the other demands, which were the key things about subsidies for food and the electricity, but now you're just adding to it, and for that go through the democratic process. But maybe they knew something that we didn't know, which is what people are reporting in these current elections now, because it's normally the same faces that are standing in the same elections for the last 15, 20 years with the same results. If it's not one person, it's the next one. If it's not the next one, it's back to the first one. And it's just a musical chairs. That's what you say, one term is for one person, then it's the next one, and it's the same cycle again and again. And the Pakistan government obviously have an impact on that. And so that's where the Pakistan government came in and kind of stopped and said, do it that way. The Action Committee weren't happy about it because of the corruption that they were concerned about. So they're both arguing about the same things from different sides. And where's the middle ground then? Because the Pakistan government will turn around and say, no, we've had the elections, they were done in the right way, this person won, he represents so-and-so party, and now you form a government using those 12 seats and that influence. And then it's up to them to try and decide. That's not going to happen, it's not going to work, is it? So those demands are still going to remain, the issues are going to carry on until they actually resolve it, and it has to. I believe it has to come from the Pakistan side. They have to sit up and say, look, this isn't going away tomorrow. This isn't going away, very soon. And these people are resilient. Let's just sit down and hash it out in the right way.
Okay. Let's move on to one of the most serious areas in issue, which is human rights and accountability. Amnesty International has called for communications to be restored and for media and independent observers to be allowed access, arguing that restrictions make independent verification harder. The human rights chief, Volker Turk, has called for calm and for prompt, thorough and impartial investigations into all deaths during the unrest, including protesters and members of security forces. The UN has also called for meaningful and inclusive political dialogue to address local grievances. That phrase matters. All deaths, not just the deaths that support one side's argument, not just the deaths that make one side look bad. All deaths. Every family deserves truth. Every victim deserves dignity. Every allegation deserves investigation. Every official account deserves scrutiny. Every protest movement deserves questioning. And every state action deserves accountability. Now, the truth should not depend on which side you support. The question really, Ishvak, is why are communications restrictions so damaging during a crisis, and who benefits when independent verification becomes impossible? And I know you've mentioned some of the things that you've seen online. I have too. We've got a lot of comments still coming in. Unfortunately, I can't read a lot of these on air because there's a lot of passion that's been shared this evening, certainly for what's taking place, and there's a lot of accusations that are coming in against the Pakistan army and what's taking place in Kashmir at the moment, and that ties really into what I'm asking you now, Ishvak, which is why are communication restrictions so damaging in this crisis?
The simplest thing is Pakistan army or the Pakistan government will tell you that it's a security risk. They're trying to hinder communications to stop further unrest, and because they're worried about communications from outside countries, sources, whatever, which would cause issues or security threats within that region. That would be a fine excuse, but that's an excuse that every government uses. I can tell you now that Israel have used that excuse as well. I'm not comparing Pakistan to Israel, I'm not saying it in that way, but what I'm trying to say is it's become an excuse that governments tend to use now.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's been no independent monitoring of the Gaza.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, there situation. You go. There you go. So
in fact, so many journalists have been killed.
There you go. So now, what's vital is that communications are allowed, internet services are re-established, and the main reason for that is not because of us sharing more videos or whatever. I think that acts as a now in this world that we live in with technology, etc., it almost becomes a garden post, right? Not a garden post, a guard for the public where the security services will think twice before they take any steps which may be construed or used against them in the future. So I think it's vital that those internet and communication services are re-established, have to be re-established. That will stop anyone shooting, killing, or it would also make people accountable.
And to that end, Cameron from Luton, who's listening to the show, he's asked, he's saying, if the authorities believe they acted lawfully, why not allow independent access? So I totally agree with you there, Cameron.
That's exactly what I'm just saying.
Yeah, you are, absolutely. We've got another question that's coming in just now as well. This is come in from Noreen from Bradford. She's saying, if protest leaders say their movement is peaceful, how do they distance themselves from any violent elements?
It's very difficult. This is, and again, this will come the same things that the Pakistani army or government will say, that those protests have been infiltrated by outside sources, and I'm not saying that's happened, because the protesters will say the opposite. Okay, so how do you find that balance? Now, there's some stories that we hear where army officers have been killed and then their bodies have been mutilated, or faces, etc. Which is disrespect to the army, and that's the reason why the army is not stepping back, because they're not happy with the actions that have been taken. Some people have become over passionate about it and maybe gone too far on both sides. Okay, how do you reel that back in? That's up to the individual, but then really and truly it comes back to our belief. As Muslims, we need to have sabr. I've always said this in all walks of life, in every situation we're in. The first thing is, as much as we want something, everything comes from Allah. No one can hit you with a rock You know, a rock might hit your face, but it's only hit your face because Allah allowed it to.
Yeah.
Okay? So as long as we understand that and then gain some sabr and say, look, there's things that happen because of the raza, the will of Allah, as a belief, as a Muslim, we hold on to that, then why do we have to go so far? Why can we not hold back and try and do it in the amicable way?
Thanks for that. We've got another message coming in from Rashid. Rashid is saying, this is not only about one protest movement, it is not only about one election, it's not only about one government response, it is about whether Kashmiris are genuinely allowed to speak for themselves.
Well, I think is quite a good summing up there, because that's the feeling of most of the Kashmiris I've spoken to. But again, it comes back to that point. Is it 50, 60 years too late? Should it have happened sooner? And something else, I was speaking to someone the other day, and I said this, and sorry, this is pertinent now, is I said to him that as much as we want, you know, I was just saying about sabr, we don't have the patience to deal with things or plan ahead in a long term. So even with the action committee, you've got some of the things you wanted, you know there's issues with these seats, so rather than demanding it and working on it, saying it now, why not plan it like every other country that is successful and every other movement that is successful? They have a long-term agenda. You know, they will put people into posts, they will put people into Pakistani government, whatever, you know, and or in the army. They will work together, and over a long period of time, maybe people don't have, they want to see it in their lifetime, I don't know, but there's things that have happened. To give you an idea, Israel wasn't built in a day, you know. It's the same thing. So why not have that sabr and time and work on it in a proactive way, where it might take 5 years, it might take 10, but you get the end result what you wanted.
Yeah.
With avoiding the bloodshed and all the other issues.
Yeah.
I know we don't have the patience.
Yeah.
As you know, a community, we've never had the patience. Everything's got to be tomorrow or today.
Yeah. Look, Kashmiris have often been treated as symbols, you know, but symbols do not vote, grieve, pay bills, bury loved ones, or live under uncertainty. People do. Okay, we move over on to now I guess you could say, the uncomfortable question for Pakistan. Pakistan has long presented itself internationally as a voice for Kashmiri rights, self-determination and political freedom. But if those principles matter, they must also apply in Pakistan-administered Kashmir. If the right to protest matters, it matters there. If representation matters, it matters there. If human rights matter, they matter there. If communications blackout are wrong elsewhere, they must also be questioned there too. If Kashmiris deserve a voice, they must be allowed to use that voice even when it criticizes Pakistan or local authorities. You cannot demand freedom for Kashmiris as a slogan, then become uncomfortable when Kashmiris use that freedom to challenge your own side. So my question to you, Ishvak, is, can Pakistan credibly speak about Kashmiri rights internationally if grievances inside Pakistan-administered Kashmir are not addressed transparently?
Very good question, and it's put me on the spot a little bit because I have to think about it. The thing is, as I said at the start of the show, there is different opinions. I've got friends who agree with the Pakistan stance because of security issues or threats that they may be concerned about, but I've got friends who understand the concerns of what the action committee is saying.
Okay, let me flip this then. Does honest criticism of Pakistan's handling of this unrest weaken the Kashmiri cause or strengthen it by making it more principled?
In the long term, it weakens it from both sides, and I've always said this, and the reason I said that is, say Pakistan, Kashmiris go to the United Nations, and it's been said in the past that when we're talking on Kashmir in the United Nations, the Pakistani representative is in the front and the Kashmiri representative is sitting behind him. You know, it should be that they should be on the table, not on the menu, which is what's happening at the moment. Kashmiris at the moment seem to be on the menu rather than on at the table. And I think that is the dispute that the Kashmiris have, that they're tired of being on the menu. They want a seat at the table and they want to be able to be vocal about their own decisions and direction in that way. But the Pakistan maybe fear that that direction takes Kashmir away from Pakistan. I doubt that would happen. I think there's more people that want to stay with Pakistan and are loyal with Pakistan. I think Pakistan is probably being overzealous in the sense of trying to be overprotective of Kashmir in one way, and trying to hold on to something that's not going to leave anyway.
I like that. So I'm going to tag on to that, which is, do you sometimes feel that we talk about Kashmir through loyalty to either India or Pakistan rather than loyalty to Kashmiri people themselves?
No. Whenever I've spoken about Kashmir, I've always been loyal to Kashmir. And the reason for that is because of our heritage. My grandparents, as I said, there's so many people here from the Kashmiri diaspora. And although I was born here, people will still call me a Pakistani, or people will still call me a Kashmiri. And I can say, I can associate with all of those. So, no, whenever I've spoken about Kashmir in the past, whenever I've spoken about the issues that go on in Kashmir, the Indian-occupied Kashmir, I've always thought about the Kashmiris, not about what India thinks or what Pakistan thinks.
Thanks for that. So, just to reiterate, this is not anti-Pakistan, it's not pro-India, it's pro-accountability. Human rights are not a weapon to use against your opponent. They are a standard that must apply to everyone. So let's just bring this...
I was just going to say something to you. Basically, and he asked this question earlier on, and it's true. So I would be a hypocrite if I criticise India for what's happening on that side of Kashmir if I didn't criticise or wasn't prepared to criticise Pakistan for what's happening in Azad Kashmir at the moment. And you can't be... You have to be fair and honest and transparent when it comes to both sides.
I agree with you. Okay, so let's bring this a little bit closer to home, Ishvak. So many British Pakistanis and British Kashmiris, Kashmir is not distant. It is family, memory, identity and pain, just as you've articulated. But diaspora politics can become selective, which we find out in the course of this week and throughout this show. We are quick to condemn oppression when it comes from one side we oppose, but we can become quiet when criticism is aimed at the side we emotionally support. That is not justice. That is loyalty politics. Selective outrage is not justice. It's politics wearing the language of justice. Now, if we oppose internet shutdowns, we should oppose them consistently. If we oppose excessive force, we should oppose that consistently. If we believe in human rights, we cannot choose which victims count. And if we believe Kashmiris deserve self-determination, we must also believe they deserve the right to criticise local governance. And if we care about Kashmir, we must care about Kashmiris, not just the political argument. So do we give Kashmiris space to speak freely, or only when they say what we want to hear?
At the moment, it's the latter, isn't it? Well, that's what the feeling is, and that's what the frustration is, that they're only allowed to speak when the tone is of the ilk that people want to hear, which suits other nations or other parts of the world or other countries. And, Kashmiris, rather than being the bell that is struck, don't want to be that anymore. Maybe they want to be heard at the table, and that's what we were talking about earlier. So they're tired of being struck, I think, and when that happens, and it continuously happens, those people will have those frustrations, and that will show.
For sure. I think what we also must be clear is that this discussion must never become hatred towards Pakistanis, Indians, Muslims, Hindus, Sikhs, or any community. We challenge policies, decisions and power. We do not attack ordinary people. Let's look at the clash of narratives, Ishvak. According to AP, authorities say Jack was banned, that armed elements were involved, and that security forces were trying to protect elections and public order. AP reported official claims that masked gunmen, snipers and militants were involved in the unrest. But on the other side, Jack and civil society voices allege that peaceful protesters were targeted and that state response has been excessive. Amnesty International and the UN have called for transparency, restoration of communications that we've said over and over again tonight, and investigations into the death. What do we think that this is going to end anytime soon?
If the Pakistani government don't get to the table, then I don't think this is going to end very soon. I think it will just be a persistent thing. I think it'll almost become an occupation, and that is something I don't want to see, you know, because at the moment, like I said, there was that freedom between the two, you know, sides. Okay, there's a border but not a border. The last thing you want it to feel like is an occupation. The last thing you want in any state is a large army presence. And there's also political extremes within Pakistan. So when you talk about, you know, different political parties, the party in control at the moment, Noon League or the People's Party, will tell you that the fractions of this action committee are linked to PTI, say, or Imran Khan, but because that movement sort of has died down, this is another way of it being reinvigorated. And if that's the case, then it's the establishment that are trying to push that down again, you know, and not just the army. So is it about holding on to power? You know, is it about keeping Kashmir close, or is it more just suppressing people?
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. Look, I've had another message that's coming here. Now, this is from Jabran. Jabran is saying, Salaam alaikum, brothers. He's sharing his messages. We should not pick any side blindly, and because this is still unfolding with a lot of misinformation currently being shared right across the internet. Look, I mean, I agree with him, because when I was doing my research for the show, Ishvak, I can tell you, there is so much information available, and some of it looked like AI, and some of it didn't, and some of it was, you could see it was corroborated, and it was genuine information that was coming out. Look, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of brutality taking place, and innocent people are being killed. But yeah, take your point. Thanks for the message there, Jabran.
I saw a video yesterday in Mirpur, a couple of days ago, where there was Rangers, you know, shooting, and there was deaths caused through that, which wasn't AI. But then I saw another video today which looked like people or trying to be militants or staging deaths with, you know, putting flags down and trying to stage a death, and that was again, you know, maybe false, which sides it come from. So I'm trying to be, I'm trying to be as neutral as I can be. I just want it to be ended in a peaceful manner, which is what I said 4 weeks ago.
You did.
And in some ways I was made to be incorrect in some of my ideas of what I hoped. You know, maybe I'm too romantic about these sort of things.
True, but listen, your intention was good. At the end of the day, you know,
in the ideal world, that's
look,
what would happen.
But the other thing as well is that, you know, you want, and everybody wants to have a peaceful solution to politics. You know, there should never be bloodshed.
Never.
You know, and as soon as that's happened, that line is crossed, and it's very difficult to come back, isn't it? Very difficult, because then you've lost hearts and minds, haven't you?
I think both sides can row back a little bit. Like I said before, I think there should be long-term plans, and if they are not resolved in a timely manner, then you can say, you know what, we've tried this, this is the extremes we've gone to, and it's not worked. It gives you a reason to stand up and demonstrate and protest, you know, because you've tried every avenue.
You have, yeah.
When you've just asked and it's not been met, or demanded something that's not been met, and then you've gone to that level, and then, you know, the reaction or the retaliation is to another extreme, it's not going to end well. So again, it comes back to that thing. I think there needs to be sabr, peace, patience and peace.
Yeah, and there was a message that's coming anonymously which says that people in the UK, certainly the Kashmiri diaspora and the Pakistani community, should not be falling out with each other over this situation. Instead, they should be uniting with each other and supporting injustices.
I'll be having a fight myself in the mirror tonight.
But listen, I take that it's true. You know, there's a lot of finger pointing taking place as well, isn't there?
I've not heard anything from the Pakistani community in that sense, because I've never seen it as separate. I wouldn't know who's from where and what, to be honest with you. We all speak the same languages. We all, you know, eat the same stuff. I've not had one or the other. I've had people from Kashmir being of different opinions, but I've not heard anyone from Pakistan speak about it in a bad way. Okay, look, thanks for that, Ishi. We are almost out of time. This show has flown by.
Appreciate you joining me this evening, Ishvak. So, tonight we've discussed the recent unrest in Pakistan-administered Kashmir. We have a look at AJK, the disputed 12 reserved seats, elections, arrests, communications restrictions, reported deaths, official allegations, human rights concerns, and calls for independent investigation and meaningful dialogue. Let me end with this. Every civilian life matters. Every security officer's life matters. Every death deserves accountability. Every protest movement must act responsibly. Every state response must be lawful and proportionate. Every community deserves representation, and every Kashmiri deserves to be treated as a human being, not just as a symbol in somebody else's political argument. Kashmir does not need more slogans shouted over its people. It needs truth, transparency, accountability, and the courage to listen, especially when the voices are uncomfortable. And thank you again, Ishvak. Thank you for listening to Salaam Radio 106.2 FM. You've been listening to Let's Talk. You can rewatch previous shows on Salaam Radio YouTube channel. Stay safe, keep the conversation respectful, and good night.